What is up, guys? I'm Kyle at Fortune. Today we're talking about the YJ failed Smog. Oh. So yes, the dreaded smog test in California. You know, it kind of varies which county you're in, if they're going to have smog or how difficult that smog's going to be. In my county, they do a dyno, so it actually has the wheels turn in and the engine under some load. So those are some of the most stressful conditions for these vehicles if they're close to failing. Now, the YJ actually has a pretty good history of passing smog. The previous owner gave me a ton of documents, did a really great job keeping all those things together, and you know, I should have taken a better look at them. If I would have seen that something serious happened to the YJ between the last smog and this current one. So I'm going to go over some of the paperwork with you guys so you can get a sense of where we're at with the YJ and its history of how well it's done with the smog. All right, so we're in the office here. We're looking at some of that paperwork that I was telling you about a little bit earlier. So let's go through this. The column that we're going to be focusing on is the far right column, which is the NO, and then it's got two different tests. One's at 15 miles per hour and then the other is at 25 miles per hour. So we're going to be focusing on both those tests and then the results. So the first one is from 2012. The max is 517 and 770. And that's for 15 and 25 miles per hour. The PPM we were measured at was 344 and 361. So well within there, you know, not by the average, but still within limits. So those were two passes. On the next one, this is from 2016. We have the same maxes, 517, 770, and this time measured a little bit different. It was 279 for the 15 and 513 for the 25. So that was another pass. Here is 2018. So this is our last good test, and you can see the numbers look pretty good once again. 304 and 222. So another pass. Then before I bought the vehicle, he told me that it didn't pass, and you know, I really didn't look at it. I just took his word for it. And you can see in that last column, we've got 1640 and 1623, a huge uptick in the NO. And you can see in the far right column, gross polluter. So the limit for that is around 1500, I believe. Oh, there it is right there. 1550 is the limit for the 15 mile per hour test, and 1600. So we just got above that, but still not good. To get it just on a regular fail, we'd have to go 200 ppm or more down. All right, so and then this is our last test. Some of these are highlighted to make it a little bit easier to look at, but that is our ppm dropped by, like I said, a couple hundred in each category. So really that's not bad just for a tune-up, but there is something very serious going on in there that we're going to need to look at. Also, you'll see we've got the visual inspection, had a defective PCV valve, and also vacuum lines to sensors and switches, which I believe he meant was the fuel regulator. We ordered some new ones and we're waiting for those to show up. You can also see in this last test that we had an increase in our carbon, which was just barely over the first limit, but the second one was pretty high too. So something's going on here, and it's time to start troubleshooting it. So as you can see, there have been some pretty big changes. Not sure exactly what they are. In the last video, we just did a huge tune-up. I figured it really just needed a tune-up, and I wanted to get that fuel system cleaner through there. And I didn't realize how much of a hard time it was having passing smog. So I went and smogged it. It failed. Now with the place I went to, I have 30 days to go back there, and I can do another smog for only 20 bucks this time. So kind of under a crunch to get this done. And really, it's time to stop messing around. I can't just throw stuff at it. There's so many things you can spend money on trying to get these things to pass smog. Since I'm going to be doing this all myself, I kind of need to narrow it down to where it's coming from. The high NO leads me to one thing, that's engine temperatures, and usually caused by a lean running engine. Based off of the smog results and some of the other things we're looking at, the first thing I'm going to do is go out to the YJ and try to pull some engine codes off it. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't know how to do or didn't even know that you could do. OBD2 readers in most modern cars, you can just plug something into them. Super easy to do. You can link it with your phone. You can get a scan tool from AUTOZONE or whatever. Those are really easy to read, but the OBD1 that the YJ has is a little bit more difficult to read, but although barbaric, it is possible to get some codes off of there. What we're going to do is we are going to put the key in the ignition. We're not going to start the vehicle at any point, but what we're going to do is have that key in the ignition. We're going to go on, off, and then we're going to see the check engine light start to blink, and that's going to show us what our codes are. Now, the way this works is you have a 2-digit code for each code line that's going to come up. So the light is going to flash a certain number of times. That's the first digit. There will be a pause, and then it's going to blink a bunch of times, and that's going to be the second digit. So you put those two numbers together, and that is your code. It's going to do this for several codes if there are some in there, and then afterwards we'll look up what those codes mean. And we don't currently have a check engine light on the YJ, but there might still be some codes in there, so we want to take a look. Two, 1, 2, 3. So 3, 1, 2, 3, 33. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 to 51. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 55. All right, so what I'm going to do is just find a search engine, whichever one you want to use. I'm going to be using Google because that's one of the most popular ones, and I'm just going to type in Jeep YJ engine codes. And what we're going to do is scroll down to the engine codes and figure out what they mean. So our first one we're looking for is number 12. Direct battery input to PCM was disconnected within the last 50 key on cycles. So that makes sense. The battery was disconnected at some point within the last 50 times of starting the engine, basically. Okay, so that one's not a big deal. One is 33. An open or shorted condition detected in the AC clutch relay circuit. So this vehicle does not have air conditioning, so that makes sense. I guess that one comes up every time. Next one, 51. Oxygen sensor signal input indicates lean air fuel ratio condition during engine operation. So that's it. That's a big one right there. Go back to 55. Completion of diagnostic trouble code display on the malfunction indicator lamp. Okay, so that one's saying it's the end of codes. That doesn't mean that there's a problem with our oxygen sensor necessarily. It's just saying that the input that it's getting is indicating that the air fuel ratio condition during the engine operation is lean. So the engine's running lean. What are the causes for the engine running lean? It usually just means that the air fuel ratio is a little off and the engine isn't getting as much fuel as it needs. So what we have to do is start narrowing this down, something with a sensor or vacuum. So we're going to look at those two. But I think the first thing we should do is test the fuel pressure and start narrowing it down and making sure everything with our fuel system is okay. All right, this is a fuel pressure test kit. You can get these from pretty much any auto parts store. We just rented this one. Hopefully it's in good condition and works well, and looks like this. So we've got to use, I think we just need to use this gauge. That's pretty much it, and this drill drain tube. That's about it. So let's get it hooked up. We've got 0 PSI right now. We're really close to it. And what we're looking for is somewhere around 30. And I don't know if any fuel is going to come out of this tube or not, but I'll just be ready to plug that off. So what I'm going to do is put the key in the ignition and we'll just put it to on just to prime the pump. We're not going to actually start it up just yet. We'll see how this gauge does. All right, so our pressure on the fuel rail there is about, let's see, 31 to 33 PSI, so that's actually pretty awesome. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hang out and kind of watch this for a little bit here. I think I'm going to do like 15 minutes just to see if it starts to drop, because if it does start to drop, that's going to mean we have some sort of issue going on, and we'll start diagnosing that. All right, we've got our gauge hooked up and it's just running up under the wiper now so we can be inside. There we go. We got one click out of the fuel pump. Looks like it's holding pretty smooth. right above 30. It's like 31-ish, between 31, 32. So that actually went pretty well. We had the fuel pressure static is holding around 30. It is going down a little bit, very small amount to where it's not a problem. And then when we started it up, it's just hanging out around 30, 31, 32, somewhere around there. We ran it up to 2,500 RPMs for a little bit and it just held steady. Yeah, I even let off the gas just straight up to see what it would do. And you know, it just went down a tiny bit and went back to where it needed to be. So I don't think we're having a problem with our fuel delivery. I think it's something else. At least right now, that's what it looks like. So I think now what we need to look at are all of our vacuum lines. I'm gonna start replacing some sensors here to see if they can help with that, because that's the other thing. If we have sensors that are telling the computer like, hey, we're not getting enough air, send more air, less fuel or something like that, you know, that could be what's tripping it up. And there's some vacuum lines in here that we need to look at as well. So the previous owner told me at one point this power steering reservoir here came off and smacked some stuff, and you can see right here tape all over this elbow for the vacuum line going into the fuel pressure regulator. PCV valve right here, you can see it's cracked on the bottom, and then right here there's a bunch of tape. This thing's just coming in and out, and this is all crankcase vent. And then, you know, there's just so many little vent hoses going all over the place. So we're just gonna have to start checking them one by one and making sure they're good. And I'm just gonna start replacing the sensors. We're already here. This Jeep's got 142,000 miles on it. There's really just not a good reason to not start replacing this stuff. And hopefully this can change how everything's going. When we get done with those changes, we'll see what that's going to do for our engine code. So if it takes out some of the engine codes or takes out that lean one, then it'll probably be time to go get it tested again. All right, so one of the first sensors we're gonna look at replacing is the MAP sensor, MAP. And what that stands for is the Manifold Absolute Pressure Sensor. So just going off of Wikipedia right here, the Manifold Absolute Pressure Sensor provides instantaneous manifold pressure information to the engine's electronic control unit, or ECU. The data is used to calculate air density and determine the engine's air mass flow rate, which in turn determines the required fuel metering for optimum combustion and influence the advance or retard of ignition timing. So basically it's saying the sensor is what's responsible for detecting the air and making sure the right amount of fuel is mixed with it. All right, so what are we looking at if we do have a MAP sensor? Like, what type of symptoms are going to manifest themselves and how the vehicle's running? So according to this website, liveabout.com, if the MAP sensor goes bad, the ECM can't accurately calculate engine load, which means the air to fuel ratio will become either too rich or too lean. This leads to excessive fuel consumption, poor fuel economy, and possibly detonation, definitely a lack of power. So those are all things that we're looking at right now. So this definitely could be a factor in why the Jeep is running lean. The next thing we're looking at replacing is the throttle position sensor. It doesn't sound like it's something that could affect too much of the air-fuel ratio, but let's check out what it does according to thedrive.com. The sensor's job is to determine the position of the throttle and communicate it to the engine control module, or ECM. As part of a vehicle's fuel system, the throttle position sensor plays an important role in determining the correct air-fuel mixture in the engine. Data from the TPS is used in conjunction with several other bits of information such as airflow, temperature, and engine speed. So it definitely sounds like that one's going to affect the fuel-air ratio as well. How do we tell when one is going bad? So some of the symptoms here of a failing TPS: lack of power. Not really sure, because it's always been the same while I'm driving it. Trouble accelerating. It's a Jeep, so that's kind of a Jeep's thing. Uneven idle. Yeah, I could kind of see that. It does kind of go up and down a little bit. Check engine light is also another thing. We don't have that right now. So not sure how much of this is going to be affected by us changing out our throttle position sensor, but we're definitely going to change it out because we're in there, and we just want to weed out all these little things, especially something that is a sensor as cheap as this. The next sensor we're looking at replacing is the intake air temperature sensors. This is one that goes right into the manifold. Let's read here on AUTOZONE.com. They have a description of what the IAT does. The intake air temperature sensor, or IAT, is responsible for monitoring the temperature of the air that is entering the car's engine. The engine's computer needs this information in order to gauge the air's density. This information is needed so that it can have the right air-fuel mixture. It is important to remember that cold air is more dense than hot air, so cold air will require more fuel in order to maintain the same air-fuel ratio. The computer is able to change the air-fuel ratio by changing the length of time of the injector pulses. So there you go. There's another air-fuel ratio, and this is going right into the intake manifold. So what are some symptoms of a bad intake air temperature? Check engine light. We don't have that. Rough idling. We kind of have a little bit of that. Trouble starting your car. The Jeep does take a little bit to start up, but it's usually only when it's been sitting for a little bit. Reduced fuel economy. Black smoke from the engine, or overheating engine. We don't really have any of those, but because this is something that affects the air-fuel ratio, we are going to replace this. And it's pretty easy to get to. You can just get to it right on top of the intake manifold. The last sensor we're looking at replacing here is the idle air control valve. Now this is one that's directly related to idle, but it's also related to the air. So it's something I figured we were just going to throw in there and replace. So one of the things I noticed right away, we replaced this and then the engine RPMs just skyrocketed up to 3,000 RPMs and would not come down. That was actually a good thing that happened, because that kind of let me know that something else is going on with this. If it's getting that high right on idle, then there's definitely something wrong with the air. And once I started looking around, I noticed that we had a very big vacuum leak, possibly. So I was like, okay, we need to get that patched up, and then I'll throw this sensor on there again. So we'll get to that in a minute. We're back on the drive.com. So basically it says the idle air control valve controls the air needed to maintain a steady idle. It essentially acts as a bypass for the throttle body plate. Let's see what some of the symptoms are when one goes bad. Trouble starting, poor rough idling, starting and then dying, a little bit of backfiring. Okay, so we do have some of those. The previous owner mentioned some backfiring on the highway. The rough idle, I'm not too sure how much of that is in there. Starts and dies, that's not us. Trouble starting. So like I was saying earlier, we were messing around with that idle air control valve. I'm looking in there and I see a bunch of electrical tape. There's two places that there was electrical tape kind of wrapped around vacuum hose. The first one plugs into the fuel regulator that's right there on the rail, and it looked like it was just old. It kind of had a split in it and it was taped up. So I got an assortment of elbows and I put those on the vacuum line, and now it fits on there nice and tight. The next one was a huge one. PCV valve on the forward side of the engine that goes to the intake box. That thing was so loose, I bumped into it and the tube came out. That's how I knew it was bad. I ordered the parts for that one and the valve in the back of the valve cover. They were going to be shipped out in like 3 weeks, and that's a problem because I'm trying to get this Jeep back into Smog before my 30-day retest expires. So I decided to just go to the hardware store. I found some hose. I think it was 1/2 inch diameter on the inside. I just put a little bit of oil around that valve when I was able to slide that hose on. It doesn't need a clamp or anything because it's pretty tight on there. I just put that tube back in there. This is something I'm going to want to replace with the actual OEM part just so it lasts longer, and it's definitely designed to do that. I don't know how long this hose I have on there is going to last. Right after we put that on there, I put the old idle air control valve on, and when we started it up, the RPMs actually went way lower than they normally do. Usually you start up the Jeep and it gets around to 1,000, maybe 1,100 RPMs, and then slowly settles down to around 700, 650, somewhere like that. In this case, I started it up and it went right down to like 500. The idle was really low, so I knew something big had changed right then. And we had been starting up the engine after each sensor just to make sure everything was good. So we went with the new one, we were at 3,000. Then we fixed the vacuum leak on the PCV valve and it dropped down to 500. So it was now time to put that new idle air control valve back in. And when we started it up that time, it did what it normally does. It went up to like 1,100 and then it settled down at 700. So obviously that vacuum leak was affecting the engine big time. Although this idle air control valve might not be the thing to fix this Jeep, it actually helped me solve one of the big problems, because I think that vacuum leak is something that was a huge contributor to this Jeep running lean. So the next thing we needed to do was get in the Jeep and disconnect batteries. So I took the battery cable off, and the reason why I did that is because I want to reset the computer. You can pull codes off the computer, and I wanted to see if that lean condition was going to go away. So I disconnected the battery, and then I left it disconnected for I don't know, about a minute or so. Put it back on there, started the Jeep up, took her for a drive, got her nice and warm up to operating temperature, came back to my house, shut it off, and then I checked for codes once again. So if you remember from earlier, the code that we wanted to get rid of was code 51, and that was engine running lean condition. So we started counting the codes again. We got, before we had 12, 13, 51, that's the lead code, and then we had 55 for end of code. Testing for the codes this next time after all the sensors being replaced and that vacuum, those 2 vacuum leaks fixed, we had codes 12, 33, and 55. That means it's gone. The engine is no longer running in that lean condition. And I think we finally are ready to get back to smogging it and see how much it came down. Hopefully our cat isn't completely destroyed. That way we can just go pass, and then maybe a couple years down the line we can replace that cat, you know, in a normal lifetime of a cat. Right now we just want to get this thing back on the road. We want to be able to register it and go wheel it. That's next. Got to make an appointment to get her smogged. All right, today's the day. We've got another chance to go smog the YJ. Because we failed that first one, they'll let us smog it again for only 20 bucks this time. I'm hoping it's not 20 bucks down the drain and that we can actually see at least some improvement, if not just get a pass. It'd be nice to stop worrying about the smog and start wrenching on this thing to get it ready for some off-roading. Well, she didn't pass. It actually did worse this time. We went up about 150 ppm in the NO, and then the other areas kind of creeped up a little bit too. So now I have no idea what's going on. We replaced so many sensors and found that huge vacuum leak. I was really sure that it was going to pass smog. We're not giving up. We're not giving up on this YJ. I think what we need to do now is take a good look at the exhaust. The intake and exhaust on the engine are just so close together, like right on top of each other. I can barely see anything that's going on. I tried putting a mirror in there. It was still really hard to see if there are any cracks or any big gaps, but it's not making any loud noises, so I don't think there is. What my plan is right now is we're going to drop this thing off in a couple days at an exhaust shop. We're going to have them inspect the entire exhaust system and see if there is anywhere that oxygen's getting in before the cat, or if maybe there's a problem with the intake or the exhaust on the engine. And if there is, we're going to just replace those parts. If there's not, we've pretty much kind of narrowed it down to just being the cat now. Unfortunately for us, the catalytic converters are pretty pricey to buy and install here, but hey, you know, we got such a good deal on this Jeep. It's fine. We'll put a little bit of money in it. We just want to go hit the trail and drive it on the road. I mean, I don't want to have to trailer this thing. I'm building it so it's something that can drive on the road, and I just enjoy driving it so much. I've been messing around with the sway bars a little bit and some of the suspension, and it's actually driving a lot better now. And then since we've messed with the engine, it just cruises awesome. So really wanted to pass smog. Got some ideas. We've got a plan. If you guys can think of anything to help us get that NO down, it's like 3 times the limit right now. You know, check out my previous video. There's some things I did there. Unfortunately, there's going to be a part 3, so let me know what you guys think. Any ideas to get this thing to pass, and hope to see you guys on the road soon. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.